Welcome everyone to another edition of Drunk Agile. With me as always, whiskey ready to go, Prateek Singh.
How's it going?
And we have
Yeah.
a kind of a freshly mobile Nisha, right?
Yeah, we've got Nisha right there.
Oh, there she is.
Yeah, there she
Yeah.
is, as mobile, and of course,
Um,
yeah,
Nisha and a half. Yeah.
Nisha half quarter and tenth.
Yeah. 10.
Yeah.
Nisha's like, I'm not upside down, you're upside down. And my name is Daniel Vacanti. Thank you everyone for joining us. Prateek, very quickly, what are you drinking tonight?
Yeah, I had the Total Wine private release barrel bourbon. I believe you got me this, but so regardless, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's reached its end of life.
In terms of reciprocating gifts, Pratik actually got me this one, so I'm back with the Garrison brothers. Um, so I think we talked about tasting and everything on previous videos. So, but
Yeah, I was gonna say it's done, as we would talk about a lot more.
is that your attempt at a crude segue?
It is. It is. It is. It's
Okay. Well,
it's a dad joke.
I was gonna say cheers first. But
Cheers.
cheers, everybody. But I guess if you want to start right into it. All right. Pratik kind of signaled what we will be talking tonight. We've like so many of our Drunk Agile topics, I think this is something that we've briefly touched on in previous episodes, maybe just kind of skimmed over or glossed over, never really went, as deep as we get in any Drunk Agile episode, but never really went as deep into the topic as maybe we should have. So we thought we would give it a go this time. And Pratik, the topic tonight is done is not what you think it is. Can you start us off? Can you talk to us about why is done not what you think it is?
All of a sudden, I'm like, well, how can we add to that? That is not what you think it is.
Oh, is this another backlog management video?
Yeah, it's a common practice for most teams to have the rightmost column on their board be done, or even if you're using a Scrum board or whatever, it's to do doing done. For most people, that done column means we as a team are done working on this. From our perspective, from an ideal flow and feedback perspective, that is not done. There is more work to be done after done.
Well, okay, but so I mean, can you say a little bit more about like mechanically how are they defining that done column?
Yeah,
So can you say say a little bit more about that?
yeah, it's the point at which we believe that this thing is not in progress with us anymore. We are done with it. So the cycle time clock on this thing has been stopped. This work is no longer aging. It is not a part of our flow anymore. That stop point is what teams usually call done. Our argument here is going to be maybe that done stop point is not really the done stop.
So just to add a little bit to what Pratik was talking about, maybe like I said, for practical purposes, maybe done is we've handed it off to another team. Maybe done is it's in production. Maybe done is it's in production, but maybe it was behind a feature flag or something like that, and now we've toggled it on, right? There, Pratik's point is at some point we have some definition where we consider this thing out of our workflow, and at some downstream step potentially that we don't care about, that we don't know about, that we don't whatever. And I think this is really kind of what we're going to talk about is you probably care a little bit more than you think that you do or should.
Yeah.
So okay. So what's next? So I think we all agree every workflow, I mean, this goes back to the Kanban guide. Every workflow should have some what it means to be finished. We should acknowledge Scrum has its definition of done as well. Safe, I think, has definitions of done. But so okay, so why, given all that, why is, especially from a flow perspective, why is done probably not done?
Yeah, in all these in every framework, every strategy, every method, the definition of done is usually created by the team itself. So we, as Dan was saying, we have these different ways of saying, hey, it's in production, it's done. It's a customer's using it, it's done, whatever that is. What that does not by default include is this thing actually solving the problem we expected it to solve? That's not a default of it. From a cycle time perspective, from an investment perspective, we've made all this investment, but we haven't figured out if we're getting the return on this thing. It's like saying that you bought some security or some stock and you are done. You have to wait till you get the return on it. Only then will you be done. So that part is often missing, the verification or the validation that we're actually getting the return on this, or we're actually solving the problem we set out to solve.
So a couple things. First on, just take us on a minor detour. You touched on something that's really interesting that maybe I'm hoping we'll talk about in a future Drunk Agile video. And this is that idea from a financial perspective. Your CFO might consider done. Hey, when is this cost capitalized? At what point can I capitalize this cost? That might be done, right? Which is kind of an interesting. It's not necessarily wrong. It's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily right, and it's not necessarily good either, right? So that's an interesting perspective that I don't think many in the community are talking about. And I know you and I have had many conversations about that. We should probably come back. Leave us a comment if you want us to talk a little bit more about the financial aspects of when something is done and when something is not done. Okay, putting that aside. Yes, the big point here is we have handed this thing off. Like I say, maybe it's to another team, or maybe it's to the actual end user. But are we actually checking? Number one, is whoever we handed it off to using it? Number one, are they even using it? And then number two, like you said, if they are using it, is it really solving the problem that they had? And I guess even more importantly, is it solving the problem that they had as efficiently, effectively, and predictably as it should have, right? I mean, I think that's so. I mean, how would that kind of manifest that self? I mean, wow. What like on our board or whatever in our workflow? How? Because right now it's done, right? It's off into the ether. So
it's gone. Yeah, it's in the clouds.
So what? Yeah. So what is that? It's tubes, right? It's tubes.
Tubes.
How? So how does that? How do we show this in a workflow? What do we do? What do we?
If we decide, which we hopefully will, after listening to this video, that it's important for us to find out whether we have actually solved the problem we had set out to solve or not. The way you would want to represent that is by saying that done does not mean the same thing it used to mean. There's a step before done. There's some sort of a monitoring or validation column before done, where we include that in all of our flow metrics on our board and everything, to say, how long does it take us to figure out if we have solved the right problem or not? I'm going to take a detour. It's very common that when we talk about flow metrics, people think of them as purely delivery metrics. While they are to a good extent delivery metrics, when you start thinking about it in terms of also including the time it takes to validate in those metrics, the throughput from that column, now they're delivery and discovery metrics. Now we're not just making attempts to solve the problem, we're also finding out how long it takes us to really solve the problem.
It's funny. It's a semantic thing, because the way you described it as inserting a column before done, which is correct. In my mind, I was thinking of, you've got your done column, but that's not the final column on your board. There's probably, whatever you're calling done, there's probably something after it.
After that.
and then you define your finish point off your workflow, based on that column, not necessarily
Right.
based on your done column, which of course both are perfectly valid
Mhm.
ways of doing it. And by the way, in probably the next video, we'll talk about how this validation step probably isn't what you think it is either. But that's probably in the next video. We're not really sure the order of these things, but that's probably going to be in the next video. But you hit on something, I think the most interesting thing that you said in that past 5 minutes is we're actually using this validation for discovery. What you just discovery
Yeah.
is at the beginning. We're talking about
Yeah.
the stuff at the end. What
Isn't
are you
this,
talking about? What?
aren't there supposed to be like two loops? There's a
Yeah.
discovery loop and a delivery loop.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is where a lot of the stuff that Dan and I talk about, I believe it differs from a lot of stuff that's been traditionally talked about in this one aspect, in the most stark manner, which is we believe delivery is discovery. The reason you deliver working things to customers is so that they can touch and play with this thing and tell you, oh, no, 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 you're solving the wrong problem. Or, yes, you're solving the right problem, but you're solving it the wrong way. Or you're solving the right problem and you solved it the right way. And then you keep iterating on that based on that feedback that you get. That kind of combines this discovery and delivery loop into a single thing where you are maintaining this, you're monitoring the cycle time of the whole thing and kind of reducing that feedback loop as much as possible.
And we invite you to go revisit. We've done a lot of videos on this. We've done a lot of videos on just in time. We've done a lot of videos on prioritization. I shouldn't say a lot. We've done at least two on prioritization and just in time. But I think we talk about it a lot. And for me, what Prateek is getting at is, the second that you finish something, the second that we've validated something, if we are truly operating a pull system, when something pops off of our process, that means we're ready to pull something into our process. That's really how pull is supposed to work. And that's we talk at the point of that first pull transaction. Yes, I know we've probably ruffled a lot of feathers by talking about, random choices and things like that. It's really kind of pseudo-random in the sense that you're not prioritizing up front. What you're doing is you're using your understanding from that validation to make the best choice and make your best choice about what the next thing to pull in is, again, just in time, only at the second when we're ready to pull something in. So that's why Prateek is saying those two things are linked. Because if you're operating a pull system, when you finish something, you should be ready to start something. And that thing you start should be informed by what we just learned from this validation step.
Yeah, and what you just described for me is the basic definition of agile. It's you learn quickly and make decisions based on what you've learned so that you keep moving in the right direction. You find out how wrong you are as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that is fun. So we are dangerously close to rambling, which we might have even passed that point because
Yeah.
there's some other things that we want to talk about that I think are probably best left for the next video. So given that, anything more, any final thoughts about done is not what you think it is? It's not done when it's in production. It's not necessarily done when it's in production. It's not necessarily done when we've handed off to a downstream team. It's not necessarily done when we think it's done. Any final thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think I'll just do a quick summary, I guess. We're talking about thinking about things from the customer perspective. And for the customer, it's not done when you've handed the thing off to them. For the customer, it's done when they can give you feedback on it and say, is this solving my problem? Is this not solving my problem? Or yes, my problem is solved. Uh, that is what we're going after more than, hey, is the team done working on this for now?
Yeesh, yeah. Now you got me thinking about scale. Now you got me thinking about scaling, right? Because we could be talking about stories. We could be talking
Yep.
about epics. We could be talking about initiatives. I don't know.
Yep.
Maybe we need another video on that. What is done
Mhm.
for those things?
Those things, yeah.
Yeesh,
The
okay,
level
well,
of experiment.
yes. Well, all right. That's for some other time. So until then, Prateek is still working on killing that barrel.
Yeah.
I'm still working on the Garrison Brothers. Is Nisha still upside down where
Yeah,
she
oh,
is?
sure, you think she's moved?
Hey Nisha, glad to have you back with us.
Yeah,
Nisha
yeah.
and a 10th.
Yeah.
So for Prateek, for Nisha, as Prateek gets his camera set back up, my name is Daniel Vacanti. I want to say thank you so much for joining. If you enjoyed this video or you have any comments, please leave them for us. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to be able to answer your questions. And we look forward to reading those, as well as we will see you in the next video. Good night, everyone.
Right.